Welcome to another episode of Culinary School Stories, the weekly podcast that is dedicated to sharing the stories of people around the globe whose lives have been influenced, impacted, touched, and or enriched, for good or for bad, from their culinary school experience. Hi, my name is Colin Roach, and I'm your host. Thanks for joining us today. You are an important part of this show, where we ask the question, what's your culinary school story? So now, without any further delay, let's meet today's guest. Hello, everyone, and thank you for listening to today's episode 25 of the Culinary School Stories podcast, a proud member of the Food Media Network. Today's episode is our last one for season number 1, and we'll be back in a few weeks with another 25 great episodes for season number 2. And to close out this season, we have an awesome interview to share with you all today. And we're going to go to the other side of the globe to get this one. So my guest today was not only a culinary school student at the Center for Culinary Arts in Manila, Philippines, but for the last 3 years has been a culinary instructor teaching the next generation of chefs. And she is here today to share her culinary school story. So now let's meet today's guest, Chef Joyce Calayag. Joyce, welcome to the show, and thank you for coming on and sharing your culinary school story with all the listeners.
Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone.
Wonderful, and thank you. It's 9 o'clock at night there. It's 9 in the morning here, so we've got a little bit of time difference. I'm having my morning coffee, and you're probably getting ready to finish dinner and go to bed. So how does it feel to be the final guest episode of season number 1?
Well, I feel very honored to be invited to speak, and as well, I'm a bit tense because it's my first time, and I'm also aware it will be it will play in different countries.
Sure,
because it's online.
Yeah, well,
so that's kind of very new to me, first time.
Well, it'll be fun to hear your story. And in honor of today, since it's the end of our season, I have even brought out the swag. For those who can't see or watching this video, you can see that I have a T-shirt on. See, Culinary School Stories T-shirt. And I even brought out my coffee mug. Culinary School Stories coffee mug. So it's the end of our first season, which has been very wonderful. You know, we've had 25 great episodes, and we've had a lot of subscribers and a lot of listeners, and we want to continue that with season number 2. And if anyone wants these shirts and stuff, we've put them on our website. You can go to chefroach.com under the storefront tab, where I keep all the other swag materials from my other shows. You can actually purchase shirts and mugs and everything else that's listed there. And down the road, I'm going to be having a contest too. So keep your eyes out for that, and we'll announce that through the email list. So if you haven't signed up for email, please do so. Also, I'll probably do it on our YouTube channel. So we'll have a contest giving away some of these shirts and t-shirts and stuff. Okay, Joyce, so let's start right out at the beginning. How did you go to culinary school? Where did your love of food start? Bring us back to that, when you realized that moment, okay, food is for me.
Well, for me, it started very early. And, I understand that some people, they spend a lot of time, years, to figure out what they want. But it so happened for me, it started very early around, my mom would say, as early as 5 months old, I know how to hold a spoon already.
Wow.
And then she just kind of encouraged me growing up. Instead of textbooks or coloring books, I would have cookbooks to play with. And modeling clays, the pretend cookware, tea set. And that encouraged me and inspired me a lot to cook and to bake. I was very fascinated with cookbooks, the cooking shows, and the labels that you find in the cake boxes,
mm-hmm.
with pictures, or the pictures that you see wrapped around cans of condensed milk,
sure,
fresh milk, those things. So that kind of inspired me a lot, and decided that it's something that I would really want to pursue. So going to college after high school, I decided right then at 16 that instead of formal college, which is 4 years, I will take the vocational route, which is 2 years of baking instead.
Awesome. And you went to school. You were young, right? You were 16. You were probably one of the youngest ones in school at the time. Where did you end up going to school again?
Right after high school, I proceeded to Center for Culinary Arts, Manila, and that was 2008. So that time I was 16.
Wow. And let's back it up here for a minute. When you decided to pursue culinary arts and go into this career or this profession, how did your family take it? How did your parents, how did your friends, when you said, I'm going to become a chef, what was their thoughts? Were they supportive? Were they talking you out of it? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, they already knew that it was something that I would really want to do because, again, growing up, I was very inspired with cooking and baking. But in this side of the world, Filipinos are very traditional when it comes to education. And being Asian, you know how most Asian parents are. They're very traditional. You have to take a 4-year traditional course in college or university in order to be considered a professional in your field. And the time, that was 2008, there weren't much schools or programs that would offer a 4-year course for an intensive culinary program or baking program. So what I did was I just kept on browsing for college course. Most of my peers went to nursing school, engineering school, and then I was like left out. I couldn't decide. And it was a few weeks before the start of school or the school year, and I still haven't enrolled anywhere. And that's when I decided, maybe if this is something that you really want, just be honest and just proceed with it. At first, my family was not very supportive. I would say they tried to talk me out of it. Like, just take any course and then you might want it later on, like dentistry or a pre-med. But I was very certain at the time, I was 16, that I'm not sure what I would want to do after. I might just take the 4-year course, but I have no plans. But if I take a culinary and a baking course, I have so many plans. Like, I want to teach, I want to write a book, I want to work in a hotel and stuff. And I just sort of figured that's what I want to do, and I would proceed with that.
And they were hoping that you would take 1 or 2 classes and then maybe lose interest and say, it's not for me. I'm going to go become an engineer or a lawyer or something, right?
Yes, exactly.
So at some point they must have figured out, no, this is the path. You're not going to change. So they had to get on board, right?
At that age, 16, what happened was they kind of let you do your thing. And when something becomes off, if you find it too hard, because culinary school is difficult, it's exhausting. So they were kind of hoping that if she gets exhausted, she'll quit, and then she'll go find a university that would fit her more.
Were they asking you all the time, so are you tired? Do you still like it? Do you still like it?
No, not to that point, but they were just kind of hoping that maybe I would change my mind, but I didn't.
So let me jump ahead here for a little bit. You're also a culinary instructor now. So how do you advise parents now who may be hesitant of sending their children to your school? How do you, convince them, or how do you, provide them with information so that they can make an informed decision about sending their child to your school?
To be honest, Chef, open houses helps a lot because I remember there was a season when most of my students were 16, 17, or 18, which just came out from senior high school. So a lot of parents would come with their kids and they would say, how come the tuition fee is so expensive and the program is not a bachelor's degree? But then I have to explain to them that the program is very intensive. It leads you to a career path with a plan. Like if you want to become a chef, you can work in a hotel, you can work overseas, you can become a teacher, and so many more. The thing is, in this part of the world around the time, there are not much professionals who are not a 4-year degree graduate. Most would be career shifters. So what I would tell the parents is, if your child already knows what they want, what he wants, what she wants, it's a good thing, because a lot of career shifters just keep on shifting courses, but they don't really know what they want. They end up not only wasting money for courses that they don't finish, but also losing time for doing things that they don't really want, instead of focusing on something that they want. And I also tell them, if your child is 16, 17, 18, that's plenty of time to get skills. By the time they are 26, maybe they are already have climbed up the ladder, already bosses, or already with enough experience to open their own business or to teach, and so on and so forth. And that kinds of open their mind. Yeah, this is a career, like a professional career that you can start as early as when you are 16 or 17.
Do you find that society over there, the general consensus is that they look down on culinary, they look down on the trades, they want them to go and I guess get a professional type degree instead? Is that their impression?
There was a time, Chef, that was the case. It so happened now that it's 2020, a lot of things has changed. There are more schools now in the Philippines that are offering program. There are more marketing materials or collaterals that you can see online. But way back, there were just a handful of schools. So because of these schools having expensive tuition fees, they kind of get the notion that it's just a fancy hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, it's not a 4-year degree course and it's so expensive. So they kind of like thinking, oh, this is just an expensive hobby. It will not get you anywhere or anywhere that far. And now it's 2020. What's great is the education system has also improved. So there are more universities offering a more intensive, more aligned program. Before, there's just bachelor in hotel and restaurant management. Now there is bachelor's in culinary operations or kitchen operations, which is a proof of the education system has become more aligned, and the curriculum has become more consistent and more relevant to what the students want.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to what we went through here in the United States, and chefs and pastry chefs and culinarians, they were listed in the Department of Labor as domestics. But in 76, I think the American Culinary Federation petitioned to get that changed to it elevated to a profession. And once it became a profession, more schools flourished. So now people would go to school for that and, became a profession. It became, more than a hobby or considered a domestic. So we've had that change, though even still today, some people I think would look down on it a little bit, but at least it's elevated the schools a little bit. Okay, let's go back to culinary school then. So your first day, you must have been so excited. If since 1, 2 years old, you were loving food and your whole going through high school, and now you get to pursue that dream. Tell us about going there and what the experience was like, and was there any letdowns that you found, or was it all like good, or kind of walk us through that in case someone's listening that wants to go to culinary school or where you went.
Because I was just fresh out from high school that time. I have no idea what's it like to go to a university. And my school, my culinary school, was just a small, tight-knit community. It's just a one square school. It's not like a big campus. So the first day, I remember I was very tense because I didn't know what to expect. And the instructors were very formal, very strict. So you were told what to do, what to expect. And a lot of my classmates didn't expect that culinary school is like a sort of a military boot camp. Like they shape you, they discipline you, they give you a lot of quizzes, they give you long lectures before you are let to cook in the kitchen. And for maybe 2 months, it was just all lectures. And most of my classmates didn't expect that. Most of us were just expecting that, okay, we will come in the morning, we'll cook, we'll be happy, and just eat, and then just go home. And it wasn't the case. It was a formal training. And that kind of opened my eyes more that, okay, this is a proper school. It's not just a hobby school.
Yeah, it's like a business degree while learning a craft at the same time. You got to put both of those together.
Yes, I agree. But however, the length is very cramped but intensive compared to a 4-year course.
And for those, I think, listeners out there that may be aspiring to go to culinary school, you bring up a great point, because they don't realize, they think, maybe we're going to just go cook and have some lunch and relax. And it's not. It's pretty regimented, and you're right on point when it's militaristic. It is like a boot camp. The uniform, the lineups that go in, the hierarchy, the brigade system with the chef, sous chef, all the way down. So, it's not for necessarily maybe someone that's more weak at heart, because when you go in there, at least that first year is pretty regimented and tough, where you got to learn those fundamentals and get those lectures. And then you get to be a little bit more on the creative side as you go up through the ranks. So, okay, so you went there and you were getting your first taste of it. So after, 2 months, did you get to go to labs? 3 months? What was your first lab? What was that like?
I took culinary for a year before I proceeded to baking, and the first lab for both program is knife skills. So you have to do the dices, the different cuts, and then butchery as well. So you had to fabricate chicken, fish, those things. But fortunately, in this side of the world, we don't we don't butcher the whole pig anymore. It just comes into slabs, and then you just have to clean it. Example, if it's a rib, then you clean the rib part. Or if it's a belly part, then you clean the belly part. It's not like way back before that they give you the whole pig live and then you butcher it.
That was your first class then, huh?
That was the first class. And I remember I was the slowest in the class.
Really? Is that class what drove you to baking and pastry, or you already had that as a dream?
I already intended to do baking and pastry as like a mastery or an expertise. But I also wanted to do the cooking part just so I have more skills. But I knew already from that point that it's something that I'm not very great at. That I have to work harder compared to baking. But it's not because I quit. That's why I shifted. It's more of like baking is something I wanted to learn more than the hot cooking.
Sure, and culinary school is kind of like medical school. You all start at the same place learning basic anatomy, and then you specialize. You branch off, and you can do baking and pastry, you can do front of the house, you can do nutrition, you could do, the culinary chef traditional route. So, there's ways that you can specialize within that degree.
I agree.
Okay, so what was your best class? What was your favorite out of them all? Is there one that stands out, maybe because of the topic, maybe because of the instructor? Is there one that you just, still fondly remember?
So fortunately for us, I remember on the hallway when you walk past by, there's a bulletin board. And on the bulletin board, they posted the curriculum. So it's kind of a academic calendar. For example, June and July, the classes are this. And then August onwards, these are the classes. So you get to see, okay, on December, there will be a grand buffet. And then on January, the classes will be ice creams. And then come March, the classes is just chocolates. So that kind of inspires you that, okay, a few months' time, you'll learn chocolates. A few months' time, you'll learn how to make wedding cakes and those stuff. So for us, we already know the subjects that are coming. And we're more like excited that this class is kind of boring, it's kind of heavy. At least this ice cream classes will come, and everyone loves ice creams and everyone loves chocolates. So it's kind of, sometimes it's boring class, but then you get to see which are the exciting classes. And fortunately also for us, the instructors are very cool. They're very skilled, but also very cool, which is an amazing experience.
Wow, great. So what is something you wish you knew before you got there? Like now after you've gone through school or you're a teacher now and you reflect, what is a piece of advice you could give to someone who hasn't gone yet? And you're like, this is something you should do or something you should know in advance to getting there. It'll make the path so much easier if you do this one or two things.
I think you should really be decisive if it's something that you want to pursue, because not only that it's expensive, it's exhausting. I mean, you go to school at 6 a.m. and go home in the afternoon. If you're lucky, if you only have one class a day, you go home after lunch. But what if you have a full day? Let's say you finish at 6 p.m. and you have quizzes, you have to make your action plans, you have to prepare your uniforms and stuff. So you just have to decide, is that something that you want to do? Because the thing is, after school, that's the life that you will get. When you go to the restaurant or the hotel, you wake up at 6, you prepare your stuff, you go to your station, and then you go home late. And then you prepare your action plan the next day or your prep list. So it's just really a preparation for the career. And not only that, it's a waste if it's not something that you really want, because it's expensive. It's very expensive to study culinary and baking. And also the time. Some students, they finish the course, but they don't practice. Mm-hmm. And the case here, from my experiences, in my batch, there were like 80 to 100 students. And when we graduated, we were only 30 something.
Wow.
And then now, presently, those 38 or 40 students, not all of those are practicing culinary or baking. And it's just a bit of sad, because I hope that everyone practiced it. And now the difference that it would make 10 years later, where would they be if they only consistently practice and hone their skills? That would make a lot of difference.
Yeah, that is so true. It's a hard academic route as well as an industry, so it's hard right at the beginning, physically and mentally, which a lot of people don't know, because you're on your feet, working hard. A lot of people working while in school, so now they have to go to their shift, and the industry is hard. It can be pretty brutal on you. So people should know that up front, that it's not a hobbyist thing. It is an industry, and some people thrive off of that. They really get excited about that. Working, they're really physical, they're hands-on, but others, it may be more of a surprise. Now, you did mention it's expensive, which it is. Culinary school is expensive because there's not many students in a class. They can't put 300 in a lecture hall. It's 15, 20. And you got to buy food. You got to buy expensive food, good food that you can have the students work with. So that drives up the cost, which is surprising for a lot of people. So maybe you could speak to the tuition and how you paid yourself when you went to school, and how you made it work and got through it financially.
Well, here in the Philippines, we don't have student loan programs. So traditionally, for us to go to college or university, the parents sends us to school. That's why the parent approval is very important, because it's the parents who will pay for the school fees. So apart from that, even if you work part-time as a student, it will not be enough to go to a culinary school, because here, if you will balance it against the normal or average family income, tuition fee is like buying a car. And then the average family income would not be enough to buy a car for a tuition fee every year, or for the whole program. That's why it became exclusive at some point. Way back, tuition was 900,000 pesos, which is if you divide to dollars right now, that would be like $25,000 upfront for the whole program, and that's very expensive. So what happened was, again, the parents would send us to school, and the classmates that you will get are mostly from the middle class to the upper class. It's very rare to find someone who is from the lower class or from a very small average family income to go to a culinary school. So what I did was, initially my siblings supported me, but I had to figure out, I had to get the scholarship for me to sustain the whole program, because I took 3 years in total First year is a culinary program, which my siblings paid. And then for the baking part, which is another 2 years that I had to work on my own, which is the scholarship grant.
So the tuition over there is obviously expensive like here, but there is no federalized student loan program where they could borrow the money, get the degree, and then once they're out working and bringing in, an income, then they could pay it back. Instead over there, it obviously falls on the parents who would have the money. So that's their savings, right? And they would have to pay the school for that. So that's a big chunk of money at one time to try to help someone to go to school. And especially if they don't think that's going to turn into a lucrative career for them to be able to, survive.
Yes.
Wow. So what kind of scholarships could someone go for then? Who is offering those grants, that money?
Well, fortunately now, the schools that have opened are more affordable. A lot of schools with concise and intensive curriculum has opened, and most of them would give a reimbursary, not so much, but it would help. So, for example, in one school that I worked at, they give a deferral payment. Instead of paying the whole or half of the program fee, you can pay 10,000 pesos a month instead until you finish the program, which is like $300 a month. So if you're a working student, you can fulfill that $300 a month because you're working or your parents can help you, which is good. And then apart from that, universities with culinary degree, they also offer scholarship. There's half scholarship, there's alumni scholarship, and also from the provinces, I heard, which is very fortunate, that I've taught students who were under provincial scholarship. So the representatives of their provinces has been supporting students by giving 50% scholarship and full scholarship in exchange of good grades. So you study, you maintain good grades, you qualify. If the school finds you eligible, they endorse you to the Congress, to the office of the congressman or the representative, and say, these are the list of students with good standing. You can select who you want to support, and these are the list of students you can support with 50% scholarship, and these are the students you can support for full scholarship. And then what's good about that is it encourages a lot of students to study better, because they can avail the full scholarship next time or the half scholarship, which helps their parents.
Sure, the incentives there. Do well, you're going to get a reward for that. Now, over here, we also have we have tuition reimbursement from some employers. So if you're working, they can give you money. And we also have a big, military. So for servicemen, servicewomen who have worked, they get some tuition free once they come back to kind of retrain them. Do you have that as well? And do you see a lot of students currently using that type of programs to offset their finances?
In my experience, I only know maybe 3 students that was a scholar of their bosses, but it's more of a private conversation with their boss. It's not an organization that supports culinary students. And we have military students, but they are from the US. I'm not sure about the Philippine military if they have the similar program, but most of the students that we have that were in the military were from the US.
Good. Yeah, because an educated workforce is so important. So anything that the government or the private industry can do to help, students go to school and to offset some of that finance is just so important. Okay, so let's go talk about influences. You're an influence now to your students. Who influenced you going up through the ranks, going through school, going through your career? Who were 2, 3, 4 influences? You want to give a shout out to a couple of them? Who was a mentor? Who was an influence on you?
Well, I have had this instructor in culinary school who I was very fortunate to also have as a boss in my previous teaching experience. His name is Michael Yap, Chef Mike Yap. So Chef Mike Yap was my instructor in culinary school. And I remember, I'm not sure if he already knew this, but he was very strict. He was very strict, very good skills, a very smart, prim, and proper man that with a commanding voice. So Chef Mike Yap was a very quiet man. He is a very serious man. When he walks or enter the classroom, everyone settles down. He doesn't have to raise his voice. He was just like say, class or guys, and everyone will shh, quiet.
He's got a presence in the classroom, huh?
Exactly. He has this presence that it amazes me even when he became a boss that sometimes I look at him and say, how come a man just walks in and everyone shh? And I wish I would earn that presence or voice. That you don't have to speak to be heard. You just walk in, stand tall, and everyone listens to you. But I think also his skills matters. I remember watching him do his demos. He's very precise, and he can really explain things. And I remember I was not feeling well for a few days already, but I can't miss his classes because again in culinary school the program is very shortened, and if you miss a class that would affect your grades a lot. Just like a day of absence would cause you to fail. Okay. So I can't skip the class. So I went in for the class. It's a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. class. And I was having fever at the time, but I didn't tell him. So by around 5:30 p.m., I was already, I almost fainted.
Wow.
I almost fainted. And so I didn't tell him that I wasn't feeling well. And then the next day he asked me, if you need anything, you let me know. And that was the first time that he smiled at me.
Wow.
I remember that. I'm not sure if I already told him. And that kind of inspired me to work harder and to earn as much experience that I could, so that one day if I become a teacher as well, I can have a student look at me and say, this is someone I want to be like in a year's time. And I am not sure if I have told him already, but that incident really inspired me a lot. That this is someone I can look up to. This is someone I can just watch and wait for him to do his thing and learn something. And working for him was very tense for me because this was my former instructor who became a boss and colleague, and he saw me from the 16-year-old to the 29-year-old presently, and he would say, if you just see yourself, how much you have grown, then you realize a lot of years makes a lot of changes and do well to people. And that would be the advice I would like to give to the students. If you give yourself some time, it's even just 3 years, 5 years, it will do a lot to you. Skills wise and experience and maturity, it will really widen your scope.
Yeah, school is supposed to change you, right? You're supposed to go into school and come out the other side a different person. You're supposed to change, mold, maybe better, maybe worse, but you should come out differently. And hopefully those people that we interact with, students, obviously, but teachers, make some kind of impression on us. And there's a few that do stick out. And as you mentioned, you have yours that almost become, a role model, a mentor that we can then try to emulate as we go through our careers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you did mention absences in lab just a minute ago, and I want to touch on that because even at our schools over here at Johnson & Wales University, in a lab class, because they're so intense and so short, and they're 9 days or 7 days, you cannot miss. And if you do miss a day, I think in our 9-day labs we allow 1 absence, but it doesn't usually affect your grade. But 2, you're automatically dropped, and you have to take the class again because of that. Contact hours. You have to be there for that. That could be the day you're learning about hollandaise sauce, and if you miss it, you don't get that skill to use to go on to other classes. So I don't think people realize that the intensity of that, and it does force you, unfortunately, when you're ill or you're not feeling well. I think I'll sleep in today.
Yes,
no, that
exactly.
does not happen. You are obligated to go.
If you're not feeling well, you have to show up.
Yeah. And we tried to discourage that because obviously if someone comes in sick, they're going to spread things. So we want them to stay home. But at the same time, it's hard to say, well, you're going to drop the class and then you're going to be charged and you're going to have to take it again. And it's going to delay your graduation.
Exactly. And they also choose to go to school even if they're sick, or just not tell anyone that they're not feeling.
Yeah. And it's kind of carries over into the industry. When you're in the industry and you're working the line, or it's a Friday night or a Saturday night or holiday, they expect you there. And unless you're, really sick and on your way to the hospital, you go and take a couple of, Advil or Tylenol and get in there. Another thing you talked about was his presence when he walked into that lab, and the students just quieted. They paid right attention. And that's because of his demeanor and his personality that precedes him, and his professionalism and obviously skill level and stuff like that. But do you notice a difference between male and female instructors? Do the students perceive them differently? Is the male or female student perceived differently? And how is that looked at over there in the Philippines?
I think in my experience, female instructors or chefs instructors are perceived more serious. Students get to quiet more, listen more when they see a female instructor coming towards them, because I don't know, maybe because the motherly instincts that this is a teacher, okay? And then commonly male instructors are the funnier ones. They're the more chill instructors.
Really?
I think that was the case for me. If in my experience when I was a student, if the instructor is a female, I just have to gauge, is she like a mommy instructor, or is she like a sister instructor, which someone who jokes, someone who doesn't yell, someone who just say it's okay, calm down, versus an instructor who is very, very strict, or like a Iron Lady teacher. And in my experience, the Iron Fist instructors fell towards the female than the male.
Really?
Yeah, that's my experience. I'm not sure for other people but in my experience, the female chefs, they are tougher in classes than the male counterparts.
And why do you think that is?
Maybe because female were motherly, and when you are a mom, you instill a discipline, and also you are more focused on the quietness, organization, because that's your thing as a mommy, or as a woman. Everything has to be clean, everything has to be in order. If you don't listen to me, I will discipline you. Those things. And I noticed the male instructors are more like, let them do their thing. They are adults. They will listen. But for us, women, we're like more into control. If you don't listen to me, I will make you listen to me. Those things.
So what type are you? If I had asked some of your students, well, what do you think of, your chef? How would they describe you? Would they think you're the maternal type that's going to be nice and crack jokes? Or are you going to be really, they think you're a strict one?
They will probably say I'm a grumpy one. Yeah, I think I'm a grumpy one. Given my age, I think I'm leaning towards the someone who jokes in classes, just to make it lively. Because again, most of my students are just most of my students are the same age as I am. But given that I am young, I also have to project a character that I am firm, which is also a challenge for me. I remember when I started teaching, my dean in the university said, "You look so young. You have a baby face, and these students will look at you like you're an older sister, not an instructor. So if you can just project or fake it, that you are firm, you are grumpy, you're very strict, it will help." And again, my voice is also very low. So I have to modulate it a little, because my voice is very low, and I have a lot of students who are same age as me, or almost same age as me, and they will not really pay attention to me if I don't. And those are the challenges that I experienced starting.
Yeah, because it's probably a pro and a con there. One, you're their age, so you can relate to what they're going through. You could talk about, popular culture, all of those things. But at the same time, they may cross that line, that teacher-student line too often, because now they think you're a little too familiar, a little too comfortable, and then become like a friend to them. And then they lose that role model. Yeah. So that's a fine line that you would have to, I imagine you would have to walk when you teach.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to culinary school, how would you recommend someone pick one? How do you choose a school now that there's so many, popping up over there and there's many choices that someone could do? What would you recommend someone do to pick the best one for them?
It's very important to know the curriculum that works for you. For example, if you already have a degree, of course, you don't go to universities that offers 4-year course. Otherwise, you have to start from the very beginning, which is the first year. But if you think that you already are old enough, you can proceed to the trade schools. Example, you just want a additional continuing education, or if you are straight from senior high school and you want to skip the 4-year course and do the trade school, you can also do that. But I would recommend that you check the curriculum apart from checking the tuition fees. There are schools offering expensive courses, but the program is not intensive. And there are schools offering very affordable rates, but the programs are not intensive and not competitive. So I would suggest, again, you check the curriculum, then you check also the tuition fee, compare the cost, and if you can, check the names of the instructors. It's good if the school is popular, if the school is joining competitions, if the schools have affiliates overseas. Example, the American Chefs Federation, they say it right?
Yeah, American Culinary Federation, or, there's different ones. Canadian Professional Culinary Federation, there's a few different ones, yeah.
So example, the school is an affiliate, and that's good because it means the school is recognized overseas and the program is recognized globally. But again, there are schools who offers very cheap, affordable courses, but they don't give you a certificate or diploma that is nationally or internationally recognized.
Right, yeah, because it's what is the objective that you're looking for? If it's a hobbyist, you just want to go learn to make some dumplings or, a couple of dishes, maybe the instructor in there is someone that's been, just learned it, or someone that's been teaching it in their home kitchen. But then there's others, the professional schools that, if you could find out who they hire for their faculty, that's important because, do they have advanced degrees? Do they have masters? Do they have PhDs? Have they been in the industry? Are they certified? That can help, with your resume or your portfolio CV when you come out, who taught you. Now, speaking of furthering your education, you are currently going after, I believe, your master's degree. Could you tell us about your master's degree? Or did you already get your master's degree? And where did you get it? And what topic, subject did you study and get it in?
Right now, I'm in the process of going to a master's degree course in University of Wollongong, Australia, which is in Sydney. So I would want to do the vocational education master's because as an educator, I've been in a room where I am the youngest. And I've also been in the room where most of my colleagues have either master's or PhD. And my age being the youngest, I feel like I am not that equipped to teach the courses that these instructors are teaching because not only that I'm young, I don't have the degrees that they have. So that encouraged me to study further. But again, it's a person-to-person basis. If you don't want to teach, you don't have to. But if you want to, then it's better because you get to share more if you know more. Mm-hmm. And you're more effective as an educator if you have a master's or a PhD. That's why I decided to pursue it. Right now, I just completed a recognition for prior learning in Sydney also for patisserie. What it will do to me is it will give me qualification to teach in a trade school, overseas, also locally, to teach patisserie. And also at the same time, be a professor in a vocational school because it's a vocational education, master's, and specialization in patisserie.
And is that an online class? Are you going to have to go for residency to Sydney, or you have to go there, or it can be done all through the internet?
Now it's a blended learning setup. So I have to go there as well for a few months and complete the course, but most of it will be offered online.
Great, yeah. And I'm a big advocate, as most educators are, for lifelong learning. I mean, that's why we're in education. We value education. So therefore, we're always learning, right? We always want to go to school and keep pursuing that. And it does help because, as you mentioned, it makes us a better instructor, a better teacher, because we're more knowledgeable. But it's also for our own, our own goals, our own, plans, our own CV, to keep growing mentally and academically. So now that you've looked back on it, is it worth it? Is it worth going to culinary school? Is it worth the path that you picked? And is it the path that you would recommend to others, or any changes you would make to that if you could now, with that benefit of looking backwards?
Chef, personally, I think that it's worth it. But I would just like to share also. I've had students, a lot of them are career shifters. And I've also had students who are almost as age as my parents. And whenever I ask them, because it's common in the first day of class that you ask your students to introduce themselves and say a little about themselves. And the common question would be, why just now? And a lot of them would say, it's just I wasn't confident earlier. It's something that I didn't want it to pursue earlier because I don't have the approval of other people, or feel like it's not traditional and those things. And what they have lost is time. I have had a lot of students who would tell me, imagine if I proceeded with this 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I will not be regretting the years spent not doing it. By now, I will have a lot of skills and a lot of experience. And personally, I think also the earlier you start, the better for you, because it gives you more time to earn the skills and earn the experience. But it doesn't matter if you are 16, if you are 25, you're a career shifter or a mother or a grandmother. If it's something that you really want, then it's just being honest to yourself to pursue it, regardless of other people's approval or not. Because the society will follow. If they see you thriving and happy, they will support you. And again, that's also very important to determine that it's something that you want to do. Because if you were honest enough to pursue it, other people will also get encouraged to pursue what they also want.
Yeah, life is short. You need to, go after those dreams and those goals and those passions, and whatever point in life that happens. Obviously, if you can do it younger, you have more time in pursuing and doing those things that you enjoy the most. But, if the revelation comes later on, that's when you have to do it. I recently interviewed someone on the show, and she was a lawyer, and she had never always wanted to be with food, but because of, like you mentioned, pressures from parents or other people, she pursued something that really wasn't in her heart. And eventually she realized, and she changed, and good for her, but, might have been better had they had done it sooner. But again, everyone has to make those decisions when it's right for them, and financially and mentally, and jump on board when it works. And it was funny, she also mentioned, we talked about the difficulties in culinary school and the challenges that you go through. She also mentioned, and I've heard it from other people, that she thought culinary school was harder than law school. So,
and for her, it's not as difficult.
Because it was law school was a lot of theory and a lot of book work, and you could study and take tests and stuff. But here, it's physically. You got to stand up, you got to chop, you got to cut. It's hot, and it's a lot more. And the homework, the assignments and the homework and the projects that you have to do and the practical exams. And many students say that it's like a lot more challenging or harder than they thought it was originally.
Can I just share?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've had a student. She was 55 years old at the time that she was my student. And being 55, she's close to, retirement age. And this is a mother. Her children have grown up already, so she's just doing basically nothing because she's just at home tending to her plants. And she realized that this is something that I can pursue at 55. But I remember she was very tense in the first day because she said, I don't feel smart enough. All of my classmates are younger than me, all of them are sharp. And if you ask me to memorize this set of ingredients, I cannot do that in one sitting. I have to spend an hour, 2 hours to memorize it because I'm not as sharp anymore compared to these students. And there was a time she wanted to quit. I think that was the first day of school because first week of school rather, because she felt that at 55 she is too old to learn things, to stand up 8 hours, to compete with younger people in class. But you know what, Chef? She stood out in the class, maybe because of the maturity, and also again she would say, I am 55. I have nothing to lose. I already lost many years of my life that I need to pursue this. But if now I'm giving time to myself to finally pursue this, if I get to do this in just 5 years, I'll still be happy. And she actually finished top of her class, which is very good.
That's awesome. I find the same thing. These adult learners that are, career changers that are coming back into it, they always are questioning themselves. They're always like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm too old. They're so young. But then they realize they end up being the top of the class. They always rise to the top. They're the leaders of the class. The younger students follow behind them. And by the end, they're usually the valedictorians that are giving the speeches at graduation. And it's like they come in so, different when they don't have that confidence, but they should. And if anyone out there is listening, it's never too late. Get in the game, just jump in.
Yes.
I want to talk about competitions. I've noticed you've done a lot of them. You've done a lot of competitions throughout your career. What did you learn from those competitions? Why did you do them? You must have won some. You must have lost some. What are the lessons that you pulled out of them? Why were you driven to these competitions?
When I was still studying, Chef, I had to do competitions because that was part of my scholarship. I have to represent my school. But initially, it was just an interest. The school is joining competition at the time, and they needed an assistant to do the preps, the mise en place, the washing up and stuff. And I volunteered to help. But it so happened one of the competitor got sick, and they need a replacement a week before. And who would be the someone fitting to do the role? It would be me because I've been with them. So they picked me, and then I was the replacement basically. And it so happened that we won in that competition, and it just continued on for me. And at the time, you were a teenager going to your 20s and joining competition. At one point, I was able to compete internationally. I didn't win. Okay? I didn't win, and that was my first loss. But again, that was international competition. But at that age, you feel that if you don't win in a competition, that you are a failure already, or if you don't win, that it would matter in your career. But competition, just like a an award, after some time you have to get another one, and then after some time of getting another one, you need to get another one because the personal urge just makes you feel like you have to join, you have to win, you have to learn this, you have to train for this and stuff. It doesn't end there. If you don't win in a certain competition, you join again or you join next year. If you want, you can use the same piece and just improve it, and then try, maybe it will win next time. And I also learned that apart from, it doesn't define your career if you're not someone who joins competition, it just gives you more edge. If you join competition, it gives you more edge because it proves that you are disciplined, that you can follow instructions, you can work in a team, you're creative and stuff. But it doesn't really define you, because I also have students, Chef, in one university that I've taught at, that if you don't win, if you don't get a slot, because there are a lot of students and there are limited slots, in the competition that the school will join. There is limited budget. The students feel so insecure that I wasn't picked. I wasn't chosen to represent the school. And their self-esteem just shrinks because they feel that they're not good enough. But only for me to tell them, you know what, when you graduate, you can join independently. You don't need the school to register to competitions. You can join on your own. You can train on your own. And maybe your workplace can also support you. So it's just really a matter of keep going and keep training. And if your bosses see that you have the potential, they will be really happy to support you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you said, win or lose, you still learn. You're still growing. It's challenging yourself, and that's an important part of it. And it's just, keep learning. It's all part of it.
And then don't let it get in your head. Very important, because some students, I also experienced this personally, that if you win something in a competition, no matter how small the competition is, it gets in your head that you are the smartest or the most skilled. But again, after some time, that competition is replaced with another year competition. You just have to keep nurturing that skill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nobody likes to lose, but, you do, you pick yourself up, you learn from that mistake, rejection, whatever it is, and make yourself better.
Yes.
So what do you think the future is of culinary school? Now we've got this global pandemic, we've got a lot more technology, we've got, things that are going on. The world is definitely pivoting. We're in a big change going on. We don't know if it'll ever go back to the way it was, which may be a good thing. Where do you see culinary school, this industry, going in the future?
To be honest, Chef, I have had a lot of reservations. And it goes, I think, for everyone who teaches in culinary, because cooking and baking is very tactile. You have to taste, you have to work with your hands, and the discipline. You have to see your students from the way they stand up, the posture, the way they tuck their shirts, the way they do their neckerchief and stuff, the way they handle the meat, the way they hold the spatula and stuff. And it's very challenging that you cannot see that if it's online. Cannot see how the students perform at home, and you cannot give them encouragement all the time, not as much as when you were in the lab. And it's very challenging. At first, I thought that is impossible because, again, it's very tactile and you cannot compensate that with online. But I think you just really have to try, and there are schools now who have invested in online program. And what's beautiful about it is you get to assess the curriculum and the program again. As culinary school teachers, we prioritize what's really important skill set that we want the students to have at the end of the program, regardless if we were physically there to teach them. And if we were able to teach them the fundamentals without face-to-face and then just online, then it means that we are effective as teachers, and we have a strong program. The instructions, the recipes are standardized. And it's important to encourage students that even if without the teachers seeing them, to just try, give it a try. I think in the future, now that it's pandemic and everything has turned online school, it's really an edge to have a program that's still competitive, still intensive, but a lot simpler in terms of the delivery and consistent. The consistency, Chef, is very important because a lot of schools right now here in the Philippines, culinary schools haven't opened. A lot of schools haven't opened, and a lot of them don't know how will they proceed because you lose the laboratory. And our curriculum is made of 90% laboratory, which is the practical kitchen, and 10% lectures. So this is a total shift for us. We have to hustle to create a program that would encourage students to still enroll even if they're not in physical classes. But it also gives us the opportunity to improve the curriculum structure that we have at the moment. Mm. Instead of 90% practical lab and just 10% lecture, maybe it will change in the future to 100% online, but 100% competitive and intensive.
Mm. So I was reading your bio, and I noticed that you said that you were an average student. You didn't really excel too much in your studies. And I'm wondering, what advice could you give, or what advice, guidance would you give to someone that wanted to go to culinary school and what they wanted to get into this career? And maybe they're worried about their academic background, or they're thinking, maybe I don't have the grades, because especially if they listen to us and we said it is tough and there's a lot of projects in there. What would you tell them?
My advice would be, this is a personal advice. Have a notebook. If you're good with drawing or writing, or even if you sketch really ugly, just have a small notebook. And whatever question that you have in mind, you write it there. Example, if you don't understand the demo, write down your questions. Or if you are someone who learns better if you write things point by point, then do it. Because I remember when I was a student, I couldn't follow the demo. That's why I did an Excel chef. Example, if it's a tournée, I couldn't follow how to make the tournée just watching it. And I couldn't draw properly. So I couldn't also draw how to make the 7 sides in a sketch. So I have to find a way to make the learning conducive for my learning style, because the learning style in culinary school is very standard. A lot of schools have a structured curriculum, but it's not applicable to all learning styles. Right? Some students are visual learners, some are audio learners, or they learn better if they hear things. And as for me, I figured out that I am a learner that learns better if I write things. So if you think that you are a slow learner like me, you have to figure out which learning style is more effective for you, because your instructors will be supportive, encouraging. I remember I have had instructors who are very patient with me, even if I ask things twice, 3 times, even if I make them 5 questions at once. One by one, they're very patient. It really matters, because at the end of the day, you are a student and we are teachers. So it's our role to make you understand or to answer your questions the best that we can. Because a lot of students are afraid to ask questions. They are embarrassed that they will be judged, that they didn't follow the demo as quick as the others. But it's very important that you allow yourself find which learning style is effective for you to understand things. So again, have the notebook and also practice at home. It's also very important. For example, you can do the tournée in class, but you can bring home the potatoes or buy carrots on your way home and practice. Spend time, practice. Sacrifice a weekend instead of playing outside. Practice at home.
Yeah, that's key. The repetition is the key to learning. So you got to do it over and over and over. And, just watching a demo or listening to a lecture, that sometimes isn't enough, especially in this, practical, hands-on kind of culinary world. So, you just got to go back and do that repetition. Alrighty, great. So what's next for you? What's next for Chef Joyce? Where are you going to see yourself, in the near future, in 5 years? What's your plans as you go through your career?
Right now, my goal is to finish the master's degree. And also, I'm in the process of writing a patisserie book. My book is a Filipino flavored patisserie items. So example, ice creams, cookies, because I also would want to advocate the Filipino desserts and the heritage Filipino desserts, not only locally, but also overseas. I feel like it's my duty to influence the young pastry chefs to look around them and know their heritage desserts better and not just learn the Western patisserie. It's so important that as a chef, you know your cuisine and you know your heritage desserts.
Well, that's cool. Where can someone get your book? Where is it going to be available? How can they find this?
It's a cookbook called Sublime by Joyce Calayag. It will be available on Amazon Kindle as an ebook.
All right. And so what was the release date of that?
It will be hopefully a 3rd week of November this year. And you can follow my book journey on Instagram as @JoyceDoodle. That's JoyceDoodle.
Okay, great. And I'll put that in the show notes too, so anyone's listening can go back and find that information to be able to follow you and hopefully get that cookbook once it's released.
Thank you.
Great. As we come to the end of our chat today, and before we wrap up, any last minute thing you want to share with the listeners? Advice, guidance, something you want to tell them before we close?
I would just like to encourage everyone that if you already figured out what you really want to do, just be honest with yourself and then pursue it no matter what. It's so important right now. We are in a crazy world. Okay, it's a crazy time, and you might as well you use your time properly, invest with education, practice at home, and so it's a good time right now as well because we have more resources. There are a lot of ways to become a professional chef now than before. There are resources online. There are more culinary schools. And you can also work as a chef and learn the trades in the industry and not just go to a professional culinary school if that's something that works better for you. You just have to be more open to yourself and be honest and pursue it with whatever that comes in your way. Just pursue it.
Awesome. Great way to end the show. Well, that is just about all the time we have for this episode, and it's the end of season number 1 of the Culinary School Stories podcast. And I want to first thank you, Joyce, for coming on the show today and sharing your culinary school story with all of us. We appreciate your time and your insight and all of your honesty. Thanks again.
Thank you, Chef. I've had a great time, and thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye now. Take care.
Yeah. Bye.
And a big thanks and appreciation also goes out to all of you, the listeners. We hope you enjoy the show and this episode. You all are a big part of this show, so please let us know what you think. Your comments are always welcome, and they help us in making the best show possible. You can email them to culinaryschoolstories@gmail.com. That's culinaryschoolstories@gmail.com. Or even leave us a voicemail at area code 207-835-1275. That's area code 207-835-1275. And if you like the show, we have a big ask of all of you, and that is to share the podcast with everyone you know and to give us a positive rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Okay, until our next Culinary School Story, take care and be well. Bye-bye. Culinary School Stories is a proud member of the Food Media Network.